What followed was genocide. Beginning in April, Chios was subject to indiscriminate slaughter of man, woman and child alike, with approximately 50,000 killed and
what the heck?
enslaved. In
Greek
January
War of
1922,
Independence continuation
and rising tensions
of this
with
lovely
Russia
series.
had forced the Ottomans to deploy most of their standing army on their eastern and northern borders. But that did not mean Sultan Mahmud II had forgotten about his rebellious Greek vassals. In 1822, the Aegean island of Chios had among the most prosperous maritime industries in the Mediterranean. Up until now, the Chiots had stayed out of the revolution, enjoying substantial autonomy and privileges under the Sultan. On March 9th, the sea wolf Lykurgos Logothetis claimed the island for the Republic, but he was met with a cold shoulder by the locals, who feared what violence his presence might bring to their homes. Unfortunately, they were right to be afraid. Overstretched the Sultan may have been, but he could not allow the insurrection to spread to an island so close to his heartland. Within 3 weeks, a large fleet, commanded by the Capitan Pasha, Kara Ali, had arrived on the isle, and what followed was genocide. Beginning in April, Chios was subject to indiscriminate slaughter of man, woman and child alike, with approximately 50,000 killed and
What the heck?
enslaved. While the
Bro, no freaking way. Dude, my last reaction that I did alone, I was already just flabbergasted by the amount of atrocities committed, and all the comments on that were something else, bro. Oh my goodness gracious me. Oh my gosh, dude. How do you defend this? Turks and Muslim people, how do you defend this? Because Turks and Muslims who watch my videos, they just love to glaze and meat right and just defend any and everything that is remotely Turkic or Islam or any Islamic empire. Like how do you defend this, bro? Like I really want to know. Like I'm speechless to these atrocities. I don't even know what to say.
Hellenes extracted a degree of vengeance when their fireships burned down Kara Ali's flagship on the night of June 18th. It was a hollow victory. The bloodbath at Chios inflamed the Western sympathies for the Greek cause, which had existed since the beginning of the war. Much like today, people in 19th century Europe and America were taught about the cultural debt that Western civilization owed to Greece, and were naturally sympathetic to the modern Greek cause. Western governments, however, were not so on board with Greek independence. Still reeling from the French Revolution and its Napoleonic fallout, Europe's leading policymakers were obsessed with maintaining continental stability by preserving the inviolable authority of Europe's monarchies, which unfortunately for the Greeks also included the Ottoman Sultan. This, however,
balance of power. The balance of power. I feel like Europe, I don't know, the whole balance of power thing, it was a good idea, but you know, Europe was too obsessed with it that it completely forgot about America. Look what we have today.
Their government's wishes. These knights errant came from all throughout Central and Western Europe and America, and were collectively known as Philhellenes, romantic lovers of Greek culture. Of all the Philhellenes, by far the most famous was Lord Gordon Byron, an English aristocrat and poet who abandoned his luxurious.
I paused the video and went back because I wanted to see what that note said, but that's cool. A former slave from Baltimore fighting for the Greeks, that's insane.
To fight directly alongside the Greeks, while donating a considerable amount of his vast family fortune to fund the Hellenic cause. Following the massacre at Chios, a 2,000...
What the hell? Byron's additional exploit, including five if a teenage Greek who was using... Bro! Oh my god, I can't read that out loud. Demonetize, bro. Oh my god.
This force was accompanied in consort by a small battalion of Philhellenes, led by the Swabian veteran Karl von Norman Ehrenfels. Hearing of this, the Ottoman Albanian general Omar Varoni marched north with 10,000 men.
Anti-Greek, giving them a head start too. And then, bro, what the heck? Nah, bro, we are 5 minutes into. Why is this war so atrocious? Holy
Battle of Peta, the Greeks and Philhellenes used.
If I read any of this out, demonetized.
Casualties on the Ottoman.
I cannot do that, bro.
Nevertheless, the sabotaging efforts of a turncoat, Gogos Bakolas, allowed Varoni to win the day. The Greeks were forced to retreat, while nearly 2/3 of the European volunteers were slaughtered. Expansion into Epirus was a failure, but in other theatres, the Greeks experienced more success. Athens had been under siege since the beginning of the war, but in June of 1822, the Ottoman garrison holding out in the Acropolis surrendered. The city was a far cry from the glory days of Pericles, having become something of a squalid backwater in modern times.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Its symbolic significance to the Hellenic nation was not lost on those who fought to liberate it. The following
Look at that note. Bro, I think everyone's just doing atrocities, bro. It doesn't matter if they're Greek Christian or Muslim, bro. I'm Turk.
A punitive Ottoman expedition, led by one Mahmud Dramali Pasha, advanced into revolutionary Greece with a massive 23,000-strong army at his back, aiming to bring the Peloponnese to heel. Dramali's campaign began promisingly when he scoured Thebes and captured Corinth, but before long, his expedition would become one of the worst Ottoman military disasters in history. Taking charge of the defense, the old warlord Kolokotronis initiated a scorched earth policy, which left the massive invasion force trapped and without food in the sweltering plains of Argolis, all while rebel snipers and raiders their dwindling supply lines. Dramali's force was then utterly annihilated in the mountain passes outside the village of Dervenekia in early August. Of Dramali's original force of over 23,000, only 6,000 returned to Ottoman territory. The victory at Dervenekia was a triumph for the Hellenic cause, but it cast a long shadow as thinly veiled rivalries began to boil to the surface.
Bro, Greeks.
After his defeat at the battle,
Let's not Greeks. It seems like the Greeks have this in the bag right now. Like, please don't tell me something stupid would undermine all of this. I would be so angry if that's the case.
Peta, President Mavrocordatos had lost prestige, while in contrast, Kolokotronis' star was ever rising after his annihilation of Dramali's army. This exacerbated a long-growing rivalry between the central government, led by Mavrocordatos, and the military leaders, led by Kolokotronis, which stemmed from the central government's attempts to rein in warlords, who had been operating functionally independently without any governmental oversight since the beginning of the revolution. By the end of 1822, these tensions were threatening to come to a head. Mavrocordatos' one-year term as provisional president of the Hellenic Republic was about to expire, and the National Assembly was overdue to meet, not just to elect a more permanent president, but also to fill a sweeping array of legislative and executive governmental positions. On April 10, 1823, both factions convened at the town of Astros for the voting. Surprisingly, it went fairly smoothly. While Mavrocordatos was not re-elected, he was appointed as head of the legislative body. The Maniot Sea Lord, Petros Mavromichalis, was elected president in his stead, and in a deliberate effort to rein in Kolokotronis and his war captains, the old Cleft was offered the position of vice president of the National Assembly, which after some cajoling he accepted. This was fortunate, for in the summer of 1823, the Greeks were reminded of their common enemy as Mustafa Pasha, the Ottoman governor of Shkoda, advanced across the Pindos Mountains. Mustafa's advance was met by the Soliots, Orthodox Albanians from Epirus. Their leader, Marcos Botzaris, martyred himself at the Battle of Karpenisi, while his Epirot army, a tenth of the Ottomans in number, killed thousands of the invaders. Nevertheless, the Pasha's advance continued, joining forces with the infamous Omoveroni and laying siege to the Greek stronghold of Missolonghi. However, this encirclement would be broken when the Soiliots, who had since joined the city's defense, managed to plunder the Ottoman food supply, forcing them to retreat. The day belonged to the Greeks, but the triumph at Missolonghi was a victory that would bear bitter fruit, for as Ottoman incursions into the Peloponnese had stopped for the time being, the Hellenes no longer had a common enemy to unite them. Theodoros Kolokotronis had initially joined the Senate of the Hellenic Republic as vice president in order to help the central government control the independent warlords of the Peloponnese. But soon, the old ex-bandit began to chafe in his new role, mainly because he was losing the veneration of his men, who had now begun to see him less as a great warrior and more as just another politician, like that four-eyed, westernized pantywaist Mavrocordatos. In October 1823, Kolokotronis resigned from the executive, officially severing his pretense of cooperation with the central government. Then, when the state finance minister, an open supporter of Kolokotronis, was dismissed from his position for imposing an unconstitutional government monopoly on salt, the Greek body politic finally broke. In retaliation for his firing, Kolokotronis' son, Panos, raided the Senate in Argos while it was in session, forcing them to disperse with threats of beatings. In retaliation for this, Mavrocordatos, still the rudder behind the ship of state, oversaw the dismissal of President Mavromichalis, who was Kolokotronis' last major supporter in the central government. Thus, while Mavrocordatos appointed a new puppet, Horchios Kondoriatis, to be his president, Kolokotronis and Mavromichalis, the foremost military titans of the Greek Revolution, started a rogue government in Tripolis. Amusingly, one way in which the two rival governments undermined each other was in their competing attempts to win the affections of the region's biggest sugar daddy, Lord Byron. As Mavromichalis, Mavrocordatos and Kolokotronis each had letters written to the British aristocrat pleading for his money while persuading him to their political
I swore he meant that in different
okay. Byron became utterly exasperated with the disunity of the Greek cause. This aggressive courtship would end when, some months after he personally joined the defense of Missolonghi against the forces of Mustafa Pasha, the eccentric British tycoon passed away after a long bout of violent fever. Perhaps the best thing Byron could have done for the Greek cause was die, for it gave the young Hellenic nation a foreign martyr and helped turn the needle of diplomacy among the great powers of Europe.
That is a crazy statement. Like, taken out of context, it's absolutely bad to say.
Europe further towards supporting the Hellenic cause. Nevertheless, at the time of his death, the Hellenes were still a small, poor, and bitterly divided people. Indeed, the quasi-Cold War between Kolokotronis and Mavrocordatos' factions would soon turn hot. Initially, the central government was able to mostly bloodlessly siege the cities of Argos, Corinth, and Tripolis. Then, in June 1824, Panos Kolokotronis surrendered Naplion to the Kondoriotis regime. This effectively ended the First Civil War. But that following autumn, a minor revolt broke out in Capparisisia over governmental taxes on local produce, which sparked a second conflict. This one was bloodier, resulting in the central government killing Panos Kolokotronis and ultimately capturing Theodoros himself, imprisoning him in a fortified monastery on Hydra Isle. Following this, Mavrocordatos reassumed the presidency of an ostensibly reunited Hellenic Republic. But his victory would be a Pyrrhic one, for the young Greek state was weak.
What about the Ottoman Empire? We just forgot they existed. Hello!
And more impoverished than it had ever been. And on the other end of the Mediterranean, in Egypt, a vast armada was forming.
Okay.
Dear Doctor.
Okay, there they go.
A certain artillery officer had launched an invasion of Egypt. An ethnic Albanian pasha named Mehmed Ali played a crucial role in repelling his Grande Armée. In subsequent years, Mehmed Ali would navigate treacherous political waters to become the governor of the Ottoman province he had helped liberate. Like so many other provincial notables across the empire,
Liberate would be a strong word. I mean, Egypt wasn't originally Turkish indigenous land. It was invaded and conquered by the Ottomans from the Mamluks, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I mean, in the Ottoman perspective, liberate, yeah, I guess, but like, did the Egyptians even like being under Ottoman rule? Like, when Napoleon invaded Egypt, the reason why the people didn't like him was because the way his occupation policy kind of sucked, to be honest. But it was like, did the people of Egypt even like? And you could say yes. You could say yes, but like, I'm not talking about people who came all the way from like Anatolia and other parts of the Ottoman Empire, imports basically, right? Non-indigenous people. I'm talking like the actual Egyptians that were there before the Ottomans came. Like, did they actually like being under Ottoman rule?
The Albanian lord would take advantage of the declining power of the Sultanate to establish a quasi-independent fief in his new realm, and by virtue of sitting on the richest breadbasket in the Mediterranean, quickly became perhaps the most powerful ruler in the Near East, an Ottoman vassal in name alone. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Sultan Mahmud II was growing increasingly infuriated at his Greek quagmire, and he needed help. It may have pricked his pride to plead a vassal for aid in putting down what was essentially a small peasant rebellion in his poorest province, but at this rate, he had no choice.
Bro,
However,
I can hear the Turks, ultra-nationalist Turks in my comments crying from that statement alone. I can hear it already. Bro, they love to glaze anything Turkic or just from the Ottoman Empire. They love to glaze, bro. It's honestly funny to read. Like, sometimes I'd be like walking, or I'd be out somewhere, like, I don't know, maybe like on break from work or something, or I'm just out, you know, maybe doing a little bit of shopping or whatever. I pull out my phone, just refresh my comments, and I just see the glaze from the Turks, bro. Just glaze, bro. Like, if you watch my videos, you know who I'm talking about. Like, you know who exactly I'm talking about. Like, oh my goodness, dude, the glaze, bro. Like, the meat writing, bro. Oh my goodness. Oh, I can't wait to hear what they say about that. Oh, bro, the Ottoman. Wait, hold on a second.
Oh, bro, the Ottomans were actually beating the Greeks, bro, because insert some, I don't know, outrageous casualty rate.
Freaking gosh, dude. Oh, the cope, bro. Or should I say corp? If I say that in my proper accent. Oh, man, the corp.
Mehmed Ali's aid wouldn't come free. So it was that the renegade Pasha was promised that whatever land he helped subdue would be added to his already massive autonomous realm, and with that, Egypt entered the fray. Mehmed Ali first intervened in the Greek insurrection in 1822, when the Sultan promised him Crete in return for crushing the rebels on that island. Although the Cretans put up a fierce resistance, they were ultimately smothered by the end of 1823, and Crete was restored to nominal Ottoman control as part of the Albanian Pasha's de facto Egyptian empire. Buoyed by the first major success against the Greeks since the rebellion's onset, the Sultan leaned on Mehmed Ali further, promising him control over the Peloponnese in exchange for the total annihilation of that nucleus of rebel activity. On July 19, 1824, 450 warships and transport vessels, ferrying 14,000 European-trained infantrymen and cavalry, perhaps the first truly modern army to be raised in Ottoman lands, set sail from Alexandria. At its head was Ibrahim Pasha, the eldest son of Mehmed Ali, an experienced warrior, battle-hardened from putting down rebellions in Arabia. Ibrahim navigated his armada into the Aegean, leaving a wake of Hellene blood behind him. The islands of Kassos and Sara were subdued quickly, a devastating blow to the Greeks, who relied heavily on them for naval power. Nevertheless, the Hellenic Republic, which was at the time still mired in the Kolokotronis Mavrokordatos civil war, did nothing to stop Ibrahim's advance.
Alright, minor Greek victory that I read there just now, okay.
The Egyptians finally made landfall in the Morea. Seeing Ibrahim as no different than the likes of Dramali or Mustafa Pasha, both of whom they'd handily repulsed, the Greeks arrogantly disregarded the threat. A fatal mistake.
Oh no.
For Ibrahim possessed a ruthless logistical and tactical genius, the likes of which the rebel nation had never seen.
Yeah, that's where it starts to go downhill. The moment you become arrogant, yeah.
Funny, while the Hellenic Republic, still busy finishing up its second civil war, did little to resist. The Egyptians then advanced on to take the twin fortresses of Old and New Navarino. Having finally subdued Kolokotronis by this point, the Hellenic government finally put up serious resistance, but their 7,500 strong army was crushed outside the village of Kramidia on April 19th. The fortresses of Navarino fell a month later, forcing the Greeks to come to the bitter realization that the Egyptian foes they had underestimated were in fact far tougher and more professional than the mostly Albanian mercenaries they had been fighting previously. After his initial success, Ibrahim pushed deeper into the Peloponnese at a blitzkrieging rate.
Damn.
In panic, the Central Hellenic government quickly released Kolokotronis from his imprisonment, gave him full amnesty, and made him commander-in-chief of the Greek forces. This was no time to keep the Republic's best general behind bars. Now reconciled with his former political enemies, Kolokotronis managed to slow down Ibrahim's advance through guerrilla tactics, and even deter him from advancing on the provincial capital of Nafplion. However, the Egyptian advance could not be stopped entirely, and by the end of 1825, most of Peloponnesos's major towns were back in Ottoman hands. Meanwhile at sea, the formerly deadly Greek navy was becoming less effective as Ottoman and Egyptian methods adapted to their fireship techniques. At the onset of 1826, Ibrahim Pasha and his Egyptian legions were the new masters of the Peloponnese, and by all metrics, the Hellenic Republic was hanging on by a thread.
Well,
in our next video,
the
Greeks will reach their
is it over?
As Ottoman forces advance upon Missolonghi, the fortress which had twice repulsed them. However, as the candle of rebellion threatens to be extinguished entirely, hope shines over the horizons, as the great powers of Europe, France, Britain and Russia finally join the fray.
Bro,
on the Greek War of Independence.
Oh, come on. Come on. I gotta wait all the way to the next episode for that. Okay.
Independence will continue, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing. It helps immensely.
If you made it all the way here and you have any suggestions for me, comment down below. If you're new, go check out my other reactions. Make sure you like as well and subscribe if you like what I have to say, man. Thank you for watching and goodbye.